Hey guys, what is going on? Legomean123 and welcome back to another Telestinct making video, where today in this episode I'll be ranking my favourite The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings movies, and this was suggested by a very good friend of mine who either goes by the name of Noob Lego Builder or Arvnav. Hopefully I am saying that correctly, but very sorry if I am not. So without further ado, let's get into it. So starting off, we have The Hobbit and the Unexpected Journey. Now the opening for this was definitely really interesting because it did start with like the Lord of the Rings sort of beginning and all that. So I thought that was really interesting and also really creative to start with that. And then the sort of beginning of it was a little slow, but I really enjoyed meeting like all the dwarves and all that, like how they knocked on Bilbo's door, and Gandalf was definitely really awesome to see. And I also really liked the backstory, what we got for Thorin Oakenshield, for like Azog, and then, or not Theoden, what's his name? Fenrir, like the Mirkwood King. So that was definitely really interesting how we got to see this sort of conflict begin against elf and dwarves. And then, like, the ending of it was definitely really interesting because we got to see Gollum, which was really awesome to see, like, an updated version for him. Because if you didn't know, the Hobbit trilogy is actually after the Lord of the Rings. So the Lord of the Rings, I think, was created in, like, 2001 and then, like, finished in 2003. And then the Hobbit, I think, began in, like, 2000 and maybe 9 or something, I'm not 100% sure. So, like, Gollum was a little more, like, better. So I thought that was definitely really awesome to see, like, the riddles in the dark. And then the battle in, like, that sort of tree section area where, like, Azog was, I thought that was definitely really interesting. But I really did enjoy just, like, all the backstory, what sort of set it up for, like, the next two movies. So I might possibly put this in first position in Amazing. Next, for the Hobbit trilogy, we have the Desolation of Smaug. Now, the opening for this film was definitely really enjoyable. How, like, Bilbo was working with the dwarves to make sure they weren't getting, like, followed by Azog. So I thought that was definitely really enjoyable. But then after that, it was, like, a little slow because we got introduced to, like, this, or, like, a forest which was, like, all cursed and, like, all sort of evilized, if that's a word. So I thought that was a little slow because it was really boring seeing them like walking through the forest, like sort of getting all sort of creeped out by sort of like turning a bit strange. But then after that, it was really cool seeing like a whole sort of spider battle with like the elves, including like Legolas and Talia. And then Bilbo was the only one which didn't actually get captured by the elves because like he was invisible from the ring, which he actually got in the previous movie. And then the whole sort of part in the Mirkwood Kingdom, that was a little slow, but I really did like the inclusion of that, how like Threnriel and Thorin had like a conversation. And then the coolest part about this whole film would probably be the barrel escape. That was really awesome to watch. I really enjoyed that scene with like the dwarves had like no weapons whatsoever, and like they were getting chased by Bolg, who is Azog's son, and then just a bunch of other orcs. And like as they're doing that, they're actually taking out orcs with their fists and then stealing their weapons to then use them against Bolg and the other orcs. So I thought that was really awesome to watch, and it's just really enjoyable seeing the dwarves, including Bilbo, in like barrels and just going down like this sort of waterfall. And then the part where I think it's Keely, I believe, when he got shot by like the poison arrow, that was definitely really sad, but also really interesting to watch because Keely is my second favorite, or just he's one of my favorite dwarves in the trilogy for The Hobbit. So I might possibly put this maybe in, I'm thinking, perfect. Yeah, I might put it in perfect because the sort of part when they get to Lake Town, that was definitely really interesting with like Bard. Just seeing Lake Town was really interesting with just all like the buildings. It was like this sort of a city on like a lake, so I thought that was really cool how they really had like no supply, so they were like sort of surviving on like fish and all that. So I thought that was definitely really cool to see. And finally, for the Hobbit trilogy, we have the Battle of the Five Armies. Now, in the previous one, we had Thorin and then Bilbo and just some of the other companions actually enter Erebor, because in the previous movie they actually did unlock it on Durin's Day. So I thought that was really interesting how it actually started with them inside of Erebor, because Feely and Keely, they actually stayed behind because Feely's brother, which is Keely, I did say he got shot by a poison arrow, so he was like struggling with that, so like he couldn't really walk. And then he also did stay with two other dwarves, which I've actually forgotten the name of. So I thought that was really cool, just seeing like these different stories sort of take place at the same time. And just everything about this was definitely really awesome. But the build up for the Battle of the Five Armies, it was a little slow because we had Thorin struggling with like dragon sickness because of like all the gold and all that, and like how Erebor was like cursed from like Azog and all that. So that was definitely a really slow and just got really boring at some points. And then Thranduil did come to actually help like Bard and like the Lake Town people. So I thought that was just really interesting because they actually got their sort of city on the lake destroyed by Smaug, because like Bilbo and like the rest of them in Erebor actually let loose Smaug. So that was definitely really sad to watch, because like the Lake Town people really did nothing. They were just minding their own business, and then boom, Smaug just comes out of nowhere and like just destroys the place. So that was definitely really sad, and just it was a really awesome battle, though I loved everything about the battle. Feely and Keely did eventually come back after what's her name? Tarlittle like healed Keely. So I thought that was really cool, like this sort of relationship with a dwarf and an elf. It was a little strange though, but I really did like this sort of very simple love story in like a sort of fantasy world. And then the part in Lake Town before it actually got destroyed, where Legolas was batting like Bolg and like some orcs. I thought that was definitely really awesome to see that. But just the whole battle after all these events was really awesome. I did enjoy a 1v1 against Thorin and Azog. I thought that was definitely really cool. Just everything about the battle was just perfect. So that is why I'm going to put it into maybe first position in perfect, because it was a little slow, so I might move it. I might put it in first position still, but it was a little slow actually building up to. But I can definitely see why, because they wanted to have like that sort of hype for the Battle of the Five Armies. Starting off the Lord of the Rings trilogy, we have the Fellowship of the Ring, and I really enjoyed the opening for this because it did start with a bit of brief history of the One Ring and like all the other rings. And like in the background you could hear Galadriel's voice actually explaining things, and then it cut to this really cool battle with Sauron, who was like the One Ring owner, and then like men and elf fighting side by side with one another. And then it did cut to the same opening as the Unexpected Journey. I really like that sort of parallel, how it actually began with the same opening as the Hobbit in a way. So I thought that was definitely really cool. It may have ended with that, no, I'm not too sure. And then how we got introduced to Frodo and Bilbo like a couple of years after the events of The Hobbit. That was definitely really enjoyable. And what I really found awesome was just how straight into the action it got, because Gandalf did learn that the One Ring had like come back up after all this time, and like Sauron sent out Nazgûls to find it. So I thought it was straight into the action. That's what I really enjoyed. And like how Frodo and Sam, they sort of went on this journey to Rivendell to actually deliver the ring, and then to learn like the fate of the ring. So I thought that was definitely really enjoyable, and just how straight into the action it did get. It was slow at some parts, but that is what I really enjoy, because then like out of nowhere it was sort of surprise attack you with something really cool or awesome. And then like the whole Nazgûl thing, I thought that was really great, but that scream, it sometimes can be quite painful to the ears. And then like the whole sort of cancel Elrond and like the Fellowship of the Ring, I thought that was such an awesome moment for like Aragorn, and then like Boromir, Legolas, Gimli, Gandalf, and then the other four hobbits. And then we cut to a really awesome battle with like Gandalf and like, no, not Gandalf, we'll take that back a bit. So there was this really cool moment in the, what is it, or the Mines of Moria, where like Frodo and all that were battling goblins, because it sort of seemed abandoned at some moments, but then like there was this really awesome fight with like a troll. And then one of the greatest moments in this movie would have to be Gandalf saying, "You shall not pass." That was so awesome, and every time that happens, I just have to say it, because like that's when he did it with the Balrog, and I really like how Frodo and Sam and Aragorn and the other Fellowship members, I liked how they were upset about Gandalf's, like, sort of sacrifice, and, like, how he sort of fell where the Balrog was, instead of just being like, oh, we just lost, like, Gandalf, no one really cares. I'm really glad they sort of had this sort of sorrow moment, and then we move into this really awesome battle in the forest. That was such an awesome moment. Just everything about that battle was really great, like the whole sort of forest setting, and then Boromir, he sort of felt he needed the ring so then he could be, like, powerful and all that. And I really did like a very simple sort of redemption arc, how he sort of protected the two hobbits, but then he did later die. And honestly, I think he kind of did deserve it a little bit, because he sort of did try to get the ring from Frodo when he, like, said he was going to protect Frodo. And then, like, the ending was definitely really sad, how Frodo and Sam sort of split from the Fellowship and they took on the adventure themselves. So I might possibly put this maybe in first position in perfect. Then, continuing the Lord of the Rings trilogy, we have the Two Towers, and this was just full of so much awesomeness, with, like, all the battles, the whole sort of story, the plot, because one of the greatest battles in this trilogy would have to be Helm's Deep. That was just so amazing to watch, because, like, Aragorn and then Theoden, they knew, and, like, the rest of the people in Helm's Deep, they knew they were not going to stand a chance against Saruman's army. I think it was like 10,000 orcs. So I really liked how just hopeful they were to actually fight against the 10,000 orcs from Isengard. And then, like, the whole sort of part where Isengard orcs had actually taken Merry and Pippin, I thought that was definitely really interesting. How we actually got to see Gandalf, but as, like, the White Wizard. I thought that was definitely really awesome. And what I really liked was, instead of just saying, oh, I'm back, and, like, I'm now, like, Gandalf the White, I'm really glad there was, like, a really good explanation for, like, why he's returned. So I thought that was definitely really cool. And then Sam and Frodo do continue their journey, and then they actually do, I wouldn't say capture, but they sort of grab Gollum, and they sort of, like, persuade him to, like, help them. And during this time where Frodo, Sam, and Gollum are heading to Mordor, or the Black Gate, we actually have Gandalf, Aragorn, Legolas, and then Gimli sort of having their own adventure, where they're actually going to, Rohan, to, like, meet Theoden, because, like, he sort of poisoned Rohan's land by actually poisoning Theoden the king, like, sort of turning him evil and all that. So I thought that was definitely really interesting, and I did like that sort of mini story, like this sort of giant story. And then the Battle of Helm's Deep was definitely really amazing. And I also really did enjoy the ending, how, like, Gandalf, he did say this really quick speech, like, oh, I think it's something along the lines of, this was just like a battle, but the real battle for Middle-earth is about to begin. Something very similar to that, and I thought it's just a really nice ending. So I might possibly put this movie, I'm honestly thinking first position in perfect. Maybe first position in perfect, and then I might move down the Desolation of Smaug into amazing. And finally, for the Lord of the Rings trilogy, we have the Return of the King, and this was such an amazing ending for this trilogy, because just so much concluded in this. It was just so awesome to watch. We had Aragorn, Gandalf, Gimli, Legolas actually re-meet up with Merry and Pippin, so I thought that was definitely really cool. We had Frodo, Sam, and then Gollum, like, sort of be more closer, or, like, be in the land of Mordor, because the Black Gate, as they were about to go there in the previous film, like, Gollum sort of tugs them away, because, like, he knows for a fact that, like, once they're there, they're gonna get, like, captured straight away. So I really did like that, instead of, like, Gollum saying, oh, just go there, I don't really care, I'm just gonna, like, steal the ring. I like how he did have that sort of heart, but then the opening of it, which I think is really interesting and a little dark. We actually got to see, like, the sort of story, just a very simple story for Gollum, like how he sort of became corrupted from the ring and all that. So, and then it cuts to, like, Gollum waking up and, like, telling Frodo and Sam, like, where to go. But he is a little evil, because something did happen in the last film, which I think he felt betrayed. So now he wants to sort of take Frodo and Sam to Sheepla, which is like a massive spider, which we'll get to later. And then we do have the other side of the story with Aragorn and like the rest of the Fellowship. So I thought that was definitely really enjoyable. How like this whole sort of battle is going to happen at Gondor, but Rohan and like Theoden, they're not going to go there because like where were Gondor when like a bunch of things happen? That is what like Theoden says. So I really did like that sort of conflict between these two sort of like societies in a way. And then we have like during this we have just so much happening. Like we have this part where Lord Elrond, he recreates the sword, which we got to see in the first film, and like that sort of flashback part at the beginning of the Fellowship of the Ring. He gives it to Aragorn because he now knows Aragorn is the rightful king of Gondor, and like to stop this war. So I thought that was definitely really enjoyable, and like all the battles in this were really awesome. Like especially the one in I forgot the name of that like sort of small sort of city part near Gondor. Like I think it's Eastnight and I can't remember it. But I really did enjoy that battle, like the sort of stakes for that battle, because once the orcs conquered that sort of city, then, like, nothing would stand in the way, because, like, I think Saruman died in the last film, but Sauron, he had this whole plan to get, like, orcs from Saruman, his own orcs, like, men from, like, overseas, and then, like, maybe orcs from overseas as well, so I really did enjoy just how high the stakes were, and then I think it was Pippin. He like led this really interesting part to actually warn Rohan and also Aragorn to actually come aid Gondor. So I really did like that, but the battle by far was really amazing. I enjoyed just how long it was. Instead of like a 5-minute battle, I really enjoyed how like half of the film relied on this really awesome battle, because the first part of the battle was Gondor defending themselves, but then the other half was actually Rohan joining them, so I thought that was definitely really cool. And then the final part was like the ghost just came, because Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas, they sort of went on their own path to like find the ghost to help them. So I thought that was definitely really interesting and also really dark in a way. And then like once the ghost sort of come to aid like Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas, like they just like wipe out all the orcs. I thought that was definitely really funny, because like the ghosts are undefeatable because like they're dead and all that. And then I thought it was just really amazing with like the ending, how Aragorn became king and all that. Just so much amazing stuff in this film. Well, perfect. So that is why I'm going to put it possibly maybe in first position. Well, definitely first position in perfect. And I might possibly move maybe the Fellowship of the Ring, maybe into amazing. Yeah, maybe. Nah, I think I'm gonna put it in amazing in first position. So, hope you guys did enjoy this video as much as I did making it, because I really did enjoy sharing my thoughts and opinions on my favourite Hobbit and Lord of the Rings movies. I would definitely love to hear your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below, because these movies are some of my favourite movies of all time. So, as always guys, hope you guys did enjoy this video, and see you. Goodbye!